It's time to start the meeting of the Washington County Quorum Court County Services. And we'll start off with a prayer and pledge. Ms. Cunningham, would you lead some prayer and pledge, please?
Lord, as we gather today at this meeting, we ask that you will be in our midst. Help us to make decisions that will be pleasing to you. Help us to be able to discuss the matters at hand in a reasonable way and to be willing to give up having our own way. God, let this meeting be productive, and as should be the case in all areas of our lives, help us to keep you at the forefront of our minds as we do the work set before us. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Fourth. Okay, we have adoption of the minutes. We have a motion.
We adopt them.
Second. Anybody second?
Sure, I did.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any unfinished business? Okay, new business. Mr. Luther, I think you're supposed to talk to us about the radio business.
We probably need to set him for about 3 minutes because he could talk all night. You're welcome, sir.
Turn your mic on. Right in the middle. There you go.
Good.
That's it.
There's lots of new faces. Thank you for having me. I'm John Luther. I'm the emergency manager and 911 coordinator for the county. Chief Gales asked me if I would share a few things that the radio committee has been working on since late May regarding the radio system and the project that we need to undertake there. There was a radio committee formed to include our office. We've chaired the committee, the Department of Emergency Management. We included the Washington County Sheriff's Office, Central EMS, our Ambulance Authority, Washington County Small Towns, Law Enforcement. We have representatives from those folks, and Washington County Rural Fire Association. We had 2 rural fire chiefs and the president of the association on the committee representing that group. We had, as I said, 4 meetings since late summer. We took some time off during all the elections, let those things work themselves out, and a lot of people were busy regarding that. And in the time that we've been meeting, both formally and informally, we've had 2 presentations done at this point. The most recent was by Motorola, and they shared some preliminary information with us on how they felt like they could help us. We've had conversations with our peers who have done radio projects and or are doing radio projects currently, and we've got some additional information that we need to get from some other vendors that are out there. We have not been able to schedule those yet. But our system at this point, we put it together starting in 2004. It's really run its course. It's at end of life. The manufacturer no longer supports the product as it is. It's working. We're not having problems with it unless we have a storm or just normal radio system issues that come and go. But one thing we fear is if we have a catastrophic failure, we can no longer get the parts to repair it from the manufacturer because they no longer support them. And so we know there's always that caveat that we could have a major crisis with it. But for the most part, we're doing good. The current maintenance vendor is taking care of it, and it's working. What we want to do is do another project that'll carry us 15 to 20 years. It will be probably a very costly investment for the county. The current system, as we have it today, serves about 1,700 users from all over the county, all disciplines. We're not, shall I say, picky as to who we bring on. If you're an emergency service provider in our county and you serve our citizens, we make arrangements for you to be able to utilize our system, whether as a primary and or as a backup or secondary. In the case of Fayetteville, Fayetteville is on the AWIN system and has been for a number of years, but they also have radios that operate on our system both for interoperability purposes, but also in the event that they have a system problem, ours is right there available for them. Benton County and Rogers have most recently, along with Springdale, moved to new radio systems or in the process, or they are in the process of moving to new radio systems. Those communities chose to go to the AWIN system, and like Fayetteville, they'll obviously be interoperable with one another. We're uncertain at this point as to what the exact thing for our county to do is. We do know that we want to put the best system in place for our responders that we can, because our responders take care of our citizens, and we want our responders to have good ability to communicate with one another so that they're safe, but we know that also reflects in how that they're able to care for the communities. So we've got some more fact-finding to do. I wish I had all the answers for you, but I'll be glad to take any questions if you have any, and I don't want to do like J.P. Leming said and talk too long.
Any questions for John? John,
one good question you already know. So sorry, Chairman.
Yes, sir.
One good question you already know. John stated that there's no more parts to be had for the system that we have, the passport system, and that's because Motorola has bought all that stuff. Is that not correct?
The information that I got was that Motorola acquired the passport technology a few years ago. That's correct, and it's no longer able to be purchased.
So basically, that's why that we can't work on the passport system that we have now, is because Motorola has bought that. Motorola wants us to buy Motorola, and there's only two systems left that we can go, is NextEdge and Motorola. And you know, we've got a lot of studying to do yet to be safe, so our kids and families don't pay dearly for many years to come. So John's right, we got a lot of studying to do before we can make a good decision, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Leming. I'll guess one question.
Yes, sir.
You said that Motorola's bought all the old equipment that's being replaced?
I think they bought and I can't completely answer, but I think that they bought the rights to that software protocol that we use currently. Okay. It was an older protocol. It, like some other protocols, had been out there for many years, and I think that it was an acquisition that was made by that company.
Well, you know what? It may not be like going to the junkyard to buying parts, but you know, with these other cities shutting their systems down, are they on the same system? Were they on the same system we were on?
No, they're not. They're not on the system.
None of the others were using the same system we're using?
That's correct.
Okay. No. Well, I thought we might be able to buy some old systems there at the hub and reserve in case we had a lightning strike or something like that.
You know, I want to leave you with, and I'm not saying I'm done, I don't want to leave too quickly, but I want you to know, in that catastrophic failure comment, the pieces that are generally at the tower site, we're able to have a problem with those and pull those radios out and get those radios fixed. And there are a number of components in our system today that can take damage and be repaired, okay? The issue is the main overall system controller, the server, if you will. That's the piece that we can no longer acquire. On newer systems, any type that we will go to in the future, those servers are not a single, central, isolated, independent server. If in the new systems, no matter which way we go, those servers fail over for one another. So where we've got a central server today and remote servers at our tower sites that outlie in the county, the single server can fail and it harms all of them. And so I think the providers and the manufacturers have learned lessons there, as well as the users, in that no matter what we do in the future, we won't be dependent on one hub. We could have a failure there, but those other tower sites will kind of self-heal. You will lose the coverage in that one single area, but at least those other sites can still acquire new users that may turn the radio on or off or drive in and out of the system. And so we could have a catastrophic failure and we could lose our system. There's no question about that. But we are doing a good job, I think, to keep components on the air. But moving forward, we won't get ourselves in that situation again. And it wasn't like we got ourselves in it for bad choices. The systems weren't designed to do that in the past. Like any other technology, they have all improved, and they've found weaknesses, and they've improved those. So I'm excited that whatever we do, we won't be in this situation again.
Well, I'd hate to think we're going to be kept captive by Motorola or anybody else, that we couldn't go ahead and have some options there.
That's correct. There are a lot of options out there, and we certainly need to look at those options. We have had the most conversations with Motorola because they support the statewide system, which is called AWIN, Arkansas Wireless Information Network.
Yes.
It's a group of towers across the state with a couple of controllers in the Little Rock area, and that certainly is the largest system in the state, and that's who we've been doing the most communication with. But there are other folks we need to talk to.
John, aren't we going to have to put a tower somewhere down here in the southwest part of the county to go ahead and cover that area?
I do believe there's going to have to be additional coverage provided in the southwest part of the county, no matter what we do. I've learned over the last 15 or so years that it's hard to put radio signal in a county like Washington because of the topography changes. I've told people over the last few years, it's kind of like a yard light at your house. You can have a good yard light, but you can move around somewhere and find a shadow, and you got two choices: either deal with a shadow or put up another light. And so what we've learned with our radio system is it takes a pretty good number of towers to provide coverage in all the places that our responders need to be able to communicate. And with topography that has a lot of vertical change, it's hard. And we know that that's an area, the southwest part of the county is an area that's going to need some attention. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are both Motorola and NextEdge compatible with AWIN?
No, ma'am. NextEdge is not compatible with AWIN in the fact that it is not the same operating protocol. It is interoperable with AWIN in that it can be bridged so that the two can talk to each other. When we talk about operability and interoperability, it's confusing to people because people say, well, is it interoperable? When you're on the same system, you're operable. It's almost like when you have two different languages and you have a translator. Even though two people may speak a different language, as long as you have a translator that can go between, you can have interoperability. Operability is like you and I now. We both understand the same language, and so either way, we will be able to provide a means of for our responders to communicate with their peers. It's obviously the easiest when you're on the same system.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I mean, if we are not all on the same system, does it mean we'll have to or people will have to carry two different radios?
No, ma'am. That's not the case. That's a very good question, though. What we have, Motorola provides these, other vendors provide these, are called bridging components. And what they do is they translate for two disparate systems to be able to communicate with one another. We currently do that now on 5 channels on our system. We have 1 law enforcement channel that's bridged, and we have 4 fire channels that are bridged. The fire channels get considerably more traffic. I know JP Leming has been on those. It allows our county responders to talk to Fayetteville to talk to the county on their respective radios, because the marriage of that channel is done at the tower site. The translation happens at the tower site. So either way, we will be able to provide our responders the ability to communicate with their peers in different jurisdictions.
At the same speed?
Yes, ma'am.
Would each, let's say we're talking about sheriff's deputies' cars, would they have to have both kinds of equipment in the car?
No. Again, it's done at the tower site where those controllers I mentioned a moment ago, it's where those are at. And so that controller knows that, well, I'll give you an example. Washington County Fire Interop is an interoperability channel we have for the fire departments. On the county fire radios, it says Washington County Fire Interop. On the Fayetteville radios, it says Washington County Fire Interop. As long as both users on their respective systems go to that channel is married at the tower site to communicate one-to-one all the time, 24/7, 365. It's not as good as being on the same radio system. I shouldn't say as good.
Not as easy, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, when you get good in there, what does good mean? Does it mean, there could be cost disparity, there could be different types of radios. There are a lot of reasons it'd be, but there's not a good way to put it. It's just, if you're on the same system, you're on the same system. If you're not, there are mechanisms in place that allow you to communicate with one another. Yep.
Right now, all the different entities within Washington County don't necessarily talk that easily. Is that correct?
All fire and EMS within Washington County today, to include Fayetteville and Springdale, have channels that are bridged, and they have the ability to talk to one another.
You said fire and emergency. What about law enforcement?
And on law enforcement, there's a single channel. and it's not that we can't provide more channels to law enforcement, they've just not been as an aggressive user as of that channel as the fire departments have. A frequency of use, I should say. No pun intended with radios, frequency of use, yeah. But the fire departments use it considerably more often because they run more joint operations on a more frequent basis. But law enforcement does have the ability to do that. Bikes and Blues is a good example of when our law enforcement community uses those bridge channels. Yes, ma'am.
And they carry one radio.
They carry one radio, yes.
Okay. I think I've learned somewhere that the state is willing to pick up some of the maintenance costs on this, whatever new system we go to. Is that regardless of what we choose?
No,
or
ma'am.
Is there a linkage there?
If we join the Arkansas Wireless Information Network, the state, through negotiations, will pick up, for the most part, the major portion of any maintenance that we may have on the equipment at the tower sites, the RF equipment that's there. If we join that system. If we don't join that system, any maintenance that we may have is on the county. Yes.
How expensive could maintenance be?
Well, it can be very costly, depending on the system that you purchase, depending on the problems that you have. It can be very costly. I don't necessarily want to encourage us to buy a system simply for that fact. No different than when they bring recording devices to us and say, we want to record your 911 calls and we've got a great warranty. I usually tell those folks, I want to know about a product that doesn't need a great warranty. I don't want to be using the warranty, I want to be using the product. And so, as much as that will be a financial assistance to us, I don't know that it's something that we solely want to base a system on. I just say that it's kind of icing on the cake if we get that assistance.
Well, this commitment from the state to cover the maintenance, does that expire with this governor, with this legislative session, or how much can we actually count on that commitment?
Well, having been in this chair before and dealing with you, ma'am, I know you probably know more about the legislative process in Little Rock than I do. And so I would venture to say that that's truly an unknown.
Yeah.
And I mean that with all respect. It could be that the legislature wants to support the system for many, many years to come. It could be that they look at the costs of having a lot of new users and say, why is it our responsibility to do this for you? And why are we paying the maintenance for Washington County and Benton County and Rogers? And again, that's just speculation. I can't answer, what this or the next governor or the next group of legislators will do. Yeah. I think that certainly
Well, in
depends.
the beginning, I think there was a lot of federal money tied to AWIN.
There was, in fact, and I'm not going to speak for Fayetteville technically, but from the information that I've gotten from Fayetteville is they put a lot of their own money into the system. That's correct, yes. And I'm sorry, you said federal. I was thinking of Fayetteville going on AWIN. Yes, on federal money, there was a tremendous amount of Department of Homeland Security grant funds that came post 9/11, and that really funded the lion's share, in my opinion, of the state radio system. And as that money has, shall we say, dried up, it's getting harder and harder for the state to find the available funds to sustain the system as it is today.
But back to this maintenance issue, this promise from the state, there's not what we would call a dedicated revenue stream to fund that. It could be legislative prerogative every 2 years.
Yes, ma'am, it could. And I know they're in the process of looking for that funding right now with the Public Safety 911 bill that was just, I think it was introduced last few days. We were down there. I can't give you the exact date. I've kind of.
We'll stay after them.
Yeah, we will. Yes, ma'am.
I think Mr. Leming has something he wants to tell us about this whole deal. He's on the committee.
You was talking about the cost. Right now, you can go on the state's website, and they're paying $8 million a year for the maintenance of that. And the way I understand it, if we go AWIN and Washington County gets involved, it's probably going to go up another $1.5 million for the maintenance side of it. So that'd be $9.5 million that us taxpayers is already paying for on just the maintenance side of that. So that's a big number.
I think it's one thing really obvious. There's still a lot more study to be done, and I think we got the right people on the committee to get this resolved. So unless there's any other pertinent questions at this point, let's go ahead and allow the committee to come back to us and make some good recommendations.
We'd be
Thank you,
glad to
Mr.
do
Lister.
that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, John.
Okay, I think our next presentation is a Welcome Health presentation. Ms. Harbison, will you talk about this, please?
Okay.
Turn your mic on.
Tonight, I have asked Welcome Health to come and do a presentation to the Quorum Court. This is a project that the judge and the chief and Welcome Health have been working on for 2 years. They are in a building on the campus of the Washington Regional Hospital campus, and most of that, a large part of that has been leased by UAMS, and we have gotten some of that property back, but we did not get the Welcome Health building back. And I'm not sure about other buildings that might be there. I just know about the Welcome Health building. This is educational. I want everybody to know what Welcome Health does and how many people they serve and how much rent they are paying to UAMS at this time. And they started out, last year they paid $100,000 in rent. That includes maintenance and utilities and all of that. They came down to $80,000 this last year. In my opinion, that for this to be a county building, and we're serving the people in Washington County that cannot afford health care. They have either no health care or they have limited health care. So we have Monica Fisher-Massey with us tonight, and we have Dr. Norris, who also volunteers at the clinic and is president of the nonprofit board. This is a nonprofit board that was started by a former JP, Jesse Bryant. Jesse Bryant started this clinic with Wanda Mullins several years ago in the basement of the St. James Church, and it moved to the old armory, and it was there in the old armory for several years. That's the building that's just south of the historic courthouse. They were asked to move by 2 former county judges because they were going to demolish that building and put in a parking lot. That hasn't happened. It's been remodeled, and we now rent out offices in that building. So this kind of a short summary of, you know, we have met several times with Judge Wood and Chief Carl Gales, and I think it's time for the Quorum Court to know what's going on, but you have to know the history of Welcome Health and what they do to understand this. So it's my pleasure to introduce Monica Fisher-Massey. She's the director, and she'll run through very quickly and tell you what Welcome Health does. Harvey's already been on my case. He came in and said, oh, this is 47 pages. Oh, Harvey.
46.
Oh, excuse me, J.P. Bowman.
This is still on, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for inviting us, J.P. Harbison. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Welcome Health. We've been here for 33 years, so it's a long time. We helped a lot of low-income families that didn't have access to health and dental care anywhere else. We would like to stay in Fayetteville until we're no longer needed, which is probably going to be a long time. So as J.P. Harbison already said, we were founded by a committee that was called Southeast Fayetteville Community Action Committee, and Jesse Bryant was one of those volunteers. We had others. One was Liz Rance, and one who's still here is Ralph Nessen, and who financially helped the clinic at that time was Washington Regional Medical Center, which made sense because if patients went to Northwest Arkansas Free Health Center, they didn't have to go to the ER. So it was cost savings for them. And this is where we started, in the basement of St. James United Methodist Church, up by the projects. And the clinic was open 1 day a week and staffed by volunteers only. We changed our name to Northwest Arkansas Free Health Center, moved to the basement of the old Armory building, which at that point was a jail. And the revenue office was on the first floor. We added dental services in 1988. It was quite amazing when you saw the dental chair down the hall. It looked like Alcatraz. It was very scary. The state revenue office relocated to Razorback Road, and the clinic renovated the first floor of that building with community development block grant funds. And the city of Fayetteville leased the first floor from the county, and the city allowed the clinic to rent the first floor for $1 for 20 years. It was quite a good deal. And this is what it looked like. It looks like a free health center, right? That's what you expect. It still looks the same. We're no longer in there. The windows were changed out, so they're beautiful windows. And the current tenants don't have to be worried about rainstorms and floods anymore. So in 2011, which was close to the end of our rent, which was 2016 was the end of our rent, but in order to plan ahead, we had to make a decision. So we went to Marilyn Edwards and asked if the county would be willing to renew our lease. And she said no, because the county plans to demolish the building and build a parking lot. So since we were interested in continuing our services to the community, we explored rental opportunities and rental properties in Fayetteville that were suitable to house a clinic, but also allowed for expansion, because wherever we were in the old Armory building, we were running out of space. There was such a demand for our services that we just couldn't expand any longer. We were at capacity. So we found one. We found a nice building which was 10,000 square feet. It was or is on the UMS Northwest campus on Woolsey Avenue. And the structure itself, I'm sure you're familiar with it, was actually built for Washington County Health Department. But when then the Washington County Health Department moved out and the Center for Exercise moved in, so it was all equipped with, it was set up for an exercise facility. And in 2002, they moved out to a new campus. And so the building was vacant for 10 years. Upstairs and downstairs, it's 2 stories. And this is what it looked like. So it was not very nice. And remember those 4 people standing there. I have an after picture, so you'll be surprised, which looks beautiful. So this is what it looked like. UMS was willing to lease the building to us for 6 years, and we had an option to renew for 2 terms, 4 years each. The rent was $102,000, and that was $8,500 a month. Utilities upkeep included, so the maintenance was included, and we paid for all the renovations. We agreed to those terms at the time because we didn't have another option. We needed to expand, and as far as we knew, we needed to move. So we raised $733,000 just for the renovations, plus what it took to keep the clinic going, which was $686,000. But shortly before the construction started, Washington County decided to not demolish the old Armory building and not make a parking lot out of it. So our clinic could have stayed in the old 6,000 square foot building, which we operated at capacity, but like I already said, we outgrew the space. So we had to inform our donors who gave us the funds to remodel the building that we do have the option of staying in the old building. They said, no, you just go ahead, use our money, and remodel the building on Woolsey Avenue. So in 2012, the construction was complete. Our architect was Marlon Blackwell, and construction company was SSI. We moved into our new building in January of 2013. The cost of renovations was $733,000, which we paid for. We had a very tight budget, and we did a lot of value engineering. That's when I learned what the term value engineering meant. So we decreased the budget and decreased the budget and decreased the budget. We decreased the number of windows and many, many things. And so that's what it looks like now. This was after our renovations. We updated the canopy, which of course was falling apart. This is the inside. This is where these 4 guys were standing. Looks different now. So that's our patient waiting area. This is the check-in area. Patients check in here. This is an exam room, a medical exam room. Some of the furniture was given to us, some of it we purchased. And this is our dental clinic. We have 4 operatories. So that's on the east side, and the medical part is on the west side. And in 2005, we changed our name to Welcome Health. So we started out as Southeast Fayetteville Community Action Committee, then changed to Northwest Arkansas Free Health Center, and we're now Welcome Health because a lot of negative stigma is attached to the name free. So we surveyed our patients, and a lot of them were embarrassed to go to a free clinic, and also worried that they didn't get the services that they needed, which of course changed once they entered our building and we took care of them. And our mission remained the same: to provide quality medical care, dental care, and instrumental support services in partnerships with other community resources to low-income individuals, regardless of their ability to pay. In 2015, the Welcome Health building became LEED certified at the silver level, and we did this with the help of University of Arkansas students, and they did this in the summer. It was part of a summer class. And by them doing it, we saved $10,000. They did a wonderful job. So who do we serve? Well, we serve uninsured adults and children who are low income. We also serve underinsured adults. There are many people who have insurance, they're low income, but they cannot afford their copays or their deductibles. So they cannot use their insurance because nobody will see them. And then we see insured adult patients who have Ambetter, Blue Cross Blue Shield, QualChoice United, and Medicaid. Some of them are part of the expanded Medicaid. We do not accept ARKIDS or Medicare because we don't have physicians on staff. We have a nurse practitioner, but both of these insurance companies require that there be a physician on staff. We can't afford that. So we have a staff of 12, and then we have volunteers. We have 50 professional volunteers, and 30 pre-med and pre-dental student volunteers. Our clinic is open 5 days a week, not 8 to 5, but 34 hours. And these are the services we provide. So not just primary care, but many specialty services. And for the specialty services, usually we have volunteers. We also help patients enroll in patient assistance programs to get their medications for free. We refer patients to outside providers if what they need is beyond what we can offer. And refer patients to lab services at Quest, which provides the services to our uninsured patients for free. So we're very fortunate. This is a picture of patients and a patient and a doctor. Then we also have comprehensive dental care, and keep in mind, please, all these services are free to low-income people. So we started comprehensive dental care in 2016 for adults, and then for children in 2017. And this is what we offer: everything that you can get at the dentist's office for free. We also expanded to local pre-K schools in Fayetteville and Greenland, and see children usually at the beginning of the semester and provide oral health screenings and fluoride treatments. This is our dental clinic. It's the dentist in the middle is an oral surgeon, is Dr. Hayes. He's been volunteering since 1988. He actually was one of the doctors who started our dental clinic. He's still around, comes once a week and just loves it. And so in 2018, we provided over 25,000 services to 2,600, 2,700 patients. And all of our services are free to patients who are low income. We have a current waiting list, which is actually 3 weeks, but our comprehensive dental clinic waiting list is 6 months. So patients wait patiently to get our services are free because they can't go anywhere else. Then our funding is from individuals, corporations, from Washington Regional Medical Foundation, civic clubs, the community development block grants, grant funds from Churches United Way, Arkansas Department of Health, and insurance reimbursements. However, insurance reimbursements are less than 5% because the majority of our patients are still uninsured. And why are we here today? JP Harbison has already mentioned that, part of it. In 2015, we realized the first budget shortfall in history in 29 years. And so we needed something to help us overcome that. And but why did we have a shortfall? Because foundations changed their funding areas, their funding focus. And we had more nonprofits in this area, so there were more nonprofits that fought for the same dollars. And so we had a lower income than before. We looked at our budget areas that we could possibly eliminate or reduce, and we did reduce some, but we also looked at our rent. It's of course, the rent is exorbitant because, you know, paying nearly $100,000 a year is a lot of money. When we agreed to the terms of the lease, we were kind of in a bind. We outgrew the space that we had, and we couldn't go back to that space. And the rent is especially unreasonable because UMS Northwest pays $1 a year to Washington County. Brittany, who's here today, and I reached out to our county judge for help in 2017. We met with the judge, we met with Brian Lester, and discussed our situation. Mr. Lester had already researched the lease terms with UMS and stated that the county can actually reclaim buildings that are unoccupied by UMS within a 180-day notice. And at that time, the county actually reclaimed the Veterans Services building on North Street. So Mr. Lester thought that we could reclaim, or the county could reclaim the building, and then we could pay rent to the county, and the county can take over our maintenance. We would pay the utilities and so forth. So then in the afternoon, we met with UMS and tried to renegotiate our lease and encourage them to return the building to to the Washington County. And of course, UMS was unwilling, but they were willing to reduce our rate by rent rate by 10%, and that was as of September. But they also justified this charging us rent because that is their effort to generate revenue to support their operations. So Ms. Harbison, as an advocate, sided with Welcome Health to reclaim the building. And in a subsequent meeting with the judge, a county judge, and Carl Gales, we were informed that the county will continue its efforts to reclaim our building on Woolsey Avenue. So thus far, it's been 2 years, and there has been a little progress. The county was able to reclaim some of the lots on the UMS campus, but not the Veterans Building, the Veterans Services Building, and not Welcome Health. And keep in mind, too, the bottom floor of our building remains vacant. There's nobody in there, and it would take a lot to renovate that building. Since renting to UMS in 2013, we've provided over 114,000 services, free medical and dental service to over 11,000 low-income adults and children, and we've paid over $600,000 in rent to UMS to support its operations. Rent is the second highest item on our budget. It's 11%, so that's a lot. Our budget is $725,700 a year. So UMS is very interested in our LEED certified remodeled beautiful building. The original lease was for 6 years, as I had mentioned. We had we had the option to renew 2 4-year terms. So after the first 6 years ended, which was in 2018, UMS decided to only renew our lease for 1 year, which of course they couldn't actually do because that was not the agreement in the original lease. So we did not waive our right to renew the full 4-year lease and the subsequent second 4-year term. So what we request from you is to please help us. We're a nonprofit organization. We provide free health and dental care to low-income individuals in this area, and there's a need because there are still 32,000 residents in Washington County who are living in poverty. 28,000 do not have health insurance, and many more do not have dental insurance. So we request that you please propose and vote on a resolution, and this is a recommendation by J.P. Harbison, and the resolution be sent to UMS, that UMS Northwest return the building on Woolsey Avenue, which houses Welcome Health, to Washington County before at the end of 2019, or UMS reduce our rent to $24,000 a year, with Washington County paying the maintenance and Welcome Health paying the rent and the utilities. So if UMS returns our building to Washington County, as stated earlier by Mr. Lester, we could pay Washington County a reasonable rate. We pay the utilities, I just mentioned this, and Washington County will take over the maintenance of the building. So I appreciate all the support that you can give us in our efforts to serve those who are less fortunate in our community. So if you have any other ideas of how we could, increase our income or reduce the rent to UMS, I would greatly appreciate it. Yes, sir.
J.P. Madison's asking about, do we have any of the committee that wants to make comment first? Okay, Ms. Madison, go ahead.
I just wish there was something we could do more forceful than a resolution that's non-binding, because I think the resolution should be to shame them for what they have done to you. It's embarrassing that this is what UAMS has done to a free health clinic. And I fear that if we do a non-binding resolution, which is what a resolution is, that they will just ignore us. I wish there was something we could do that was just invalidate the lease. I don't know. I know there's something about contracts with the county really can only extend for a certain number of years because of the court having to, because we're only here for 2 in a term. I wish there would be a way to invalidate it and just say that we don't support it legislatively anymore, because I just can't believe they're doing this to you. And then how did they renew for just 1 year when you had a
Well, I don't know. I don't know. It's one of those, how dare they?
Who are your contacts at UAMS?
It was somebody out of Little Rock with the I'd have to look it up.
Okay. Who's the head of UAMS here?
Well, I'm not sure at this point.
Okay.
It was Pearl McElfish, but I think there's a new chancellor.
Say something.
Okay, well, I wish we could do more.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, but the resolution should shame them.
Okay, Ms. Madison, Sue?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did you all have an attorney when you renewed your lease? Because I can't figure this out at all. You had a 6-year lease with an option to renew for 2 4-year terms.
Yeah.
So how could they only renew for 1 year?
Well,
All you had to do
don't-
was say, I'd take another 4-year term.
Yeah. We did have an attorney, and we did not waive our right to renew our lease. It's in
So
the
they
lease that we
just
only.
told you
They
this
only
is
told
what
us, yes, but it is also, there's a paragraph, an amendment in the lease that indicates that we're not waiving our right
Okay.
to the full 4 years and not the first term and not the full 4 years the second term.
Okay, well, that was smart. Let me ask kind of some questions from another angle because I remember this building in its old days. I would assume that the whole building is LEED certified or just the top floor?
Just the top floor.
I was afraid of that.
It
This
will cost a lot of money to renovate the
first floor.
first floor and to then certify it.
Well, my memory is that the plumbing for this building was in the outside walls that were not insulated. And when Rick Johnson was head of the health department, during winter nights such as we've had recently, bless his heart, he would turn off the water to the building and drain those outside lines to keep from having a broken cascade the next morning of water everywhere. So I didn't know you could get half a building certified for LEED, but that was a good step. I'm wondering if the reduction in rent may have been because there was a reduction in utilities.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
not.
Well, I think it's widely known that
Say so.
UAMS, based in Little Rock, not necessarily this one, has had some serious financial issues the last few years. And I hate to think they're making up for those mismanaged deficiencies or on the backs of poor folks in Washington County.
Right.
I mean, that strikes me as really outside the mission of a medical school.
I think Ms. Harbison has some more comments she wanted to make about this. All right?
Well, we are happy to have UAMS
Yep.
in Northwest Arkansas, but they need to play on the same field as the
I
rest
agree.
of us.
Yep. Thank you, Sue. Yes, ma'am.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We're glad that UAMS is here, and we want them to grow, and we want them to prosper,
Yeah.
and we want to do everything we can to promote them and everything else. But we have a clinic here that's serving the people, our people in Washington County, and I just can't believe that they're renting that building to Welcome Health for the amount of money, because they use their own money to renovate that building. And I hope everybody in here will go out and look at that building. It is really a nice clinic. When people go in there, they feel like someone cares about them, even though they don't have money to pay for the services. And I think that is a big issue. It gives some, pride. We don't have free health clinic, so people come because of the, as she explained earlier. I suggested the resolution because I don't know of anything else that we really can unless we just say, we want to terminate the lease and do it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. And Judge, would you or the chief like to say something about this? I know y'all been involved. Thank you, ma'am. I really appreciate your presentation. Fantastic.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for getting on through it.
All right. It has been a long process. Joseph Wood, County Judge, it's been a long process, and we have been, and they've been really patient. Welcome Health. And I was hesitant about, obviously, J.P. Harbison came Friday, and she knows I was really, really disappointed because I really didn't want the presentation to happen today because I didn't want it to interrupt what we're trying to work on. However, to J.P. Madison's point, is a time that some shaming happens to UAMS. And maybe it is. It's hard. But we experienced that when we were trying to put the crisis stabilization unit there, and we met the opposition, which started a lot of this. Why do we're paying you guys are paying us $1 a year. For how long? 20 years, and then they had it renewed almost for another 20, and that just stunned us that they had a contract done. This before we came, but then you're going to turn around and take a free health clinic and charge them $100,000? Really? And at that time, Welcome Health was like, well, let's put that out on the news. Let's go and tell the world that they're charging us $100,000. Yeah, that's. I know where you are, but let's work through this so we can, one, get some of the properties back as well as help you guys in the process. So it has been too. We have probably last summer, we finally got some of the vacant lots back in exchange that they would be able to keep the 5th floor of the UAMS, which is where we wanted to put the crisis stabilization unit, but they insisted that they wanted to expand and put more offices, executive offices there. We thought we were getting all the non-use properties back, as well as Welcome Health and the Veterans Services Office. They came back and said, well, no, we just said the vacant lots. So that's what we are, just working through the vacant lots. However, I think our last meeting we talked with you guys, we were going to do some inspections on the buildings, our buildings. We want to make sure they're meeting health department regulations, et cetera. And so we're finishing up some of those inspections. And with that, with the cost that is going to, like the building below them, the first level, it's a pretty expensive proposition to get that repaired and taken care of, as you talked about. It's not, I think, early 2000 since that's been used. When we're looking at that property as CSU, it's going to be about $1.5 million just to get that up to some sense of, because of asbestos and maybe some of all the water and all. So anyway, we are doing the inspections. With them turning in the inspections saying, here's what we found, the thought would be that they would say, you know what, we're not going to put that kind of money in here to take care of the roofing, take care of some of the piping and all that type of thing, asbestos removal, abatement. We're going to go ahead and give you guys a building back. And then we would go ahead and just work through that process and work with Welcome Health. So we're working, getting those inspections, reviewing them, and then I will have Brian Lester and I go and take that to the new chancellor, so we can walk and sit there through there and see if we can go ahead and move this process, get it out of their hands, and then the county can go ahead and take over that building and then work out the arrangement with Welcome Health. So it's a process, and again, I get the anxiety, frustration of being this long, and then working with somebody who's not working or willing to work with you. A 10% reduction. I'm like, wow, that's really. So anyway, that's kind of where we are with working with Welcome Health. So again, Ms. J.P. Harbison, as much as you know I didn't want you to do this, I said yes, let's go ahead and bring it, because at this point in time it's public shaming time.
Any questions for the judge? Okay. Well, Judge, I want to compliment you and your staff. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Willie.
What's your good recommendations that we do?
Well, again, I can't tell Welcome Health what to do, and so here they are, and they're presenting. But from our standpoint, we'll have our inspections wrapping up. We've already did the Welcome Health building. We've done the I think Veteran Services building. We still have the big Veterans Home in that building, but we wanted to bring a full review of all the building properties that we have that they're leasing for $1, and say you have, I don't know, is it 30 days to 60 days to get these taken care of, roofing, asbestos abatement, whatever this stuff is, and if not, then we can go to pulling the lease. My thought is, again, they would end up working and saying, yeah, some of this stuff we're not going to even work on. You guys can have it back. That's just the thought process. But the second would be, well, then we'll just pull on the lease. So, that help you?
Yeah, I didn't know if we needed to pursue another direction. Or
yeah, I think J.P. Madison, again, I was saying that to J.P. Harbison, it's not a whole lot that we can do no more than work through the lease process, which is our property. And if, again, you're derelict and you're taking care of the properties and the pieces and all, then we can pull it. We have 186 months, still a lot of time to delay to pull a lease. But if we can work toward this, and again, at the end, we still want UMS here. So we're not trying to do anything that's going to cause them to move. We got a new chancellor. This is all new to him, what's going on. So to give him an opportunity to get his feet on board and work through what's happening here, and maybe he has a whole new agenda and say, oh, absolutely.
Jenkins has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't really have a question. I just wanted to make a statement that I feel like a resolution would be a good start, because that would kind of put them on notice that we're watching and we understand what's going on, and it's not just being swept under the rug, to say. And then maybe from there we can work and see how that goes and see what we need to do with the lease. I feel like that's just a good start. I feel like we need to do more, but that kind of puts them on notice, I feel like, in even to threaten media involvement, you know, letting everyone know what's going on.
I'd like to say I've talked to the chief and the judge several months about this, because I found out about the lease up there and was very disappointed to hear about the terms, the way they've been reacting. And so believe me, I've heard enough from them to know that they are putting on a lot of pressure to get the situation resolved. And I think there's some real promising things coming out of this negotiating. Getting the lots back is big, but there's still other buildings that are involved that we need to get squared away. Yes, ma'am. Oh, Butch? Yes, sir. Mr. Pond?
Yes, thank you. And I wanted to express my appreciation to the county judge. He's been put in a very embarrassing situation in a lot of ways. It's just something that he's inherited, and I really appreciate that you brought it up, and you recognize that we leased that campus to UAMS with the idea that they were going to use it to provide a service to the community and not try to use that to make a profit. Or it's not the intention of the county to lease them a sizable campus for $1 and then them turn around and take advantage of people who are trying to really trying to help this community. It is, and I understand the spot you're in. That being said, I would appreciate that this resolution be polite and business-like, and that we come with, even though maybe our inner feelings are not going to be that polite, just on your account. Sure. You're having to deal with those folks. We don't need to wave red flags and poke spears at the bull and then throw you in there with him. In other words,
I appreciate that. And again, the attorneys we've been in Little Rock working with UAMS's attorneys, and it's a process. And,
yes, it is.
I appreciate you.
Anyway,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Judge.
Yep.
Okay, I think the next thing on our deal is around the county, but Mr. Gales, Mr. Chief, catch us up. We hadn't had a good report from you in quite a while.
Good evening. Carl Gales, Chief of Staff. After those two presentations, I sort of feel like that we've really had an outstanding presentation on both those parts. I thought I'd just give us a quick rundown of some of the things that happened the first 2 months of the county in the Judges Department. First, with DEM, John Luther, he's did something outstanding that I want to bring forward. They have formed a SRO, which is a school program, where that they are, and we have some school teachers that know about this program. Any of you that have been that have attended the sheriff's breakfast, they've started a breakfast of all of the school SRO officers once a quarter, to share ideas and talk about the situation. I think that's an outstanding start with a great problem that we have in our schools of security. The animal shelter is continuing to move right along. We're shipping a lot of dogs out, shipping cats. Outstanding, we shipped a group to Minnesota. Who would have thought that there was a scarcity up there of dogs, but that's where the last batch went. I think like 52 or something. Archives, one of the outstanding things that they're doing, they're working with Mr. Scott Davis, who does documentary histories, and he did one out at Cane Hill. If you haven't seen it, it's tremendous. So we're getting one on Washington County. These are a documentary history film type thing. Purchasing, 26 contracts already this first 2 months, 10 bid proposals, 36 court orders, 1,100 purchase orders, 13 accident reports. Accident reports are real complicated for us because of our insurance, getting our money. We're having a few accidents. We had one Friday where one of our vehicles was in the 10-car crash down here. I'm sure that report's going to be lengthy. And then we had one with the Sheriff's Department where down on 49, and I think that was Saturday night. So, but we get involved. We do the insurance and the processing. It takes hours. Jeannie Mack, one of the outstanding things that I've noted from the JDC that we're seeing an increase in the number of intakes, the number of days that they're in detention, and the length of stay. Now, this is our juveniles. So this is where we stop the flow, but we're seeing an increase these first 2 months over last year. So to me, that's a little alarming. I'd like to see a decrease. But the average stay is increased from 7.32 days to 8.95 days. That's almost 2 more days. So we'll look at that. Going to our HR department, one of the things that our HR department has successfully done this last 2 months is now you can get your application online. We didn't have that before, thanks to IT and HR, and we see a definite increase in applications we're getting. Also, we're reaching out to the Marshallese advocacy and reaching out to our Hispanic groups to get them involved, doing presentations to try to get more diverse. We're working with our drivers training Northwest group up here and we just had our first one in this morning. He just completed the school, so we're trying to get more people on our shortage out at the road department. Buildings and grounds. If you've been reading the newspaper and you saw it today, was a great article that we got about the about the CSU in that building, and we really appreciate that kind of information. And we thank our newspaper for being down there. We've had meetings, and he's always been present and supporting this diverse way of handling our crisis stabilization people. And I thought it was an excellent story from Springdale about spending 6 hours with the police force on one person. Mm-hmm. That's almost a day in the life or the shift of probably 2 or 3 police officers. Mm-hmm. So if we can help in that aspect, that's a tremendous thing for us. Roads. First thing I want to say about the roads is they put in about 14 hours Saturday, starting at 2:30 in the morning. They started again at 2:30 this morning, and they worked straight through to 5:30. These guys are staying with it, And you know what they tell me at the end of the shift? We didn't have an accident.
Good.
Or we had one accident. That's their goal, to help our people get home safe and get to work safe. In that time, I know that 2 of our supervisors hasn't slept in 2 nights. So just staying with it. We've crushed about 10,000 tons of rock the first 2 months. We've graded about 150 miles of roads. And our Brush Creek Bridge, which is our last bridge in our April 2017 flood, is under construction, expected to be completed by July the 4th. Library, they have a process that now where they've initiated the automatic renewal for their patrons. They're working on authority control and IT categorizing. They're ordering and stocking books for 2019. The annual number that they have is over 1 million checkouts countywide in that process. So we're glad that they're continuing to expand and go. In our grants department, we have secured over $750,000 in grants the first 2 months of this year, which is way ahead of our 2018 schedule. One of the things is that it's taken that when we first, in 2017, we initiated some new grants. Now they've rolled over and the paperwork is easier, so we're getting more out. Environmental, I'm sure that you get the weekly pictures about the illegal dump sites. And of course, if you've read the paper about what's happening up in Benton County, it doesn't take but one match to have an illegal fire dump site here if you don't stay on top of them. And we have located up in the northern part of the county next to the lake where it was an enormous number of tires being disposed by a group that would go buy tires, used tires from dealers, go through them, pick out the good ones, and then they were illegally dumping them. And there was over 1,000 tires up there that they'd illegally dumped next to our lake. And the planning department. Every one of you know what the planning department's doing, because when we have a CUP lately, it gets to the quorum court in a contentious, and the last planning board meeting was for 3 hours. So it's not to volunteer on this board and then sit for 3 hours in a meeting. Takes a lot of endurance and a lot of patience. Veteran services, and that's the final one I have. They're averaging over 200 active cases a month, and they addressed over 1,000 phone calls. And I hadn't thought about the phone calls, and I said to Josh, I said, how many phone calls you taken? Well, he had the numbers in his logging, and that's over the years. Over last year, they averaged over 1,000 phone calls a month. These are primarily being answered and helped our veterans by volunteers, program that he has initiated. That generally wraps it real quick. We've had a long meeting for this period, for this committee, but I'll take any questions, if they're easy.
If they're easy. Any easy questions for the chief?
Out west, Marshals has done a real good job. We've had a couple of arrests on arsons out our way. I noticed you didn't have them in there, the fire marshals.
Okay.
We want to thank them for their work.
All right. And we're looking at all the areas.
Another question I want to ask about is what program or how is the county involved with the transit bus? Do you know?
ORT?
Mm-hmm. The reason I'm asking this because I had a disabled guy call me today, and he's harping about a ride from Prairie Grove, and I told him I'd find out about it. I didn't know the answer to it.
I really don't know exactly how they're operating right now. It's on a call-type basis, it's my understanding. We Initially, in 2017, we had a designated route out to Prairie Grove. Then they came back. Funding has been changed. We reduced the funding significantly. I say we, through the budget, and that started in, budget reduction was in 2018 and 2019. But I'll gladly follow up. Now, is this at Prairie Grove that it?
Yes, this is Prairie Grove. A gentleman called me. He was a disabled gentleman calling me.
Okay, and but I'll get you the answer on that from Sharon Lloyd is our person that's handling the ORT organization and meetings. Jim Kimbrough did that last year while he was here, and then Sharon's taken that over. So, but I'll follow up and we'll see.
All right, I thank you for it.
You know, I'd like to say, you have heard what Carl had to say about this whole situation. I can tell you, our grants department, it's knocking it out of the park. And this thing of the CSU, guys, I can tell you, you saw the paper today. You saw what Mr. Tom put in there, that reporter that came and inspected this thing down Little Rock, said this was a home run, that we did a fantastic job with this. And you know, sometimes I think about it, how long it took us to get there. But you know, we've heard that statement on TV recently about it's better to go ahead and walk away from a bad job, a bad deal, than it is to, you know, get into it. But we stuck around and we wound up with a really good deal, I think, on the CSU. Both the way it's going to serve the people and the price is much, much less than what we talked about. So there's a lot more things in there we can talk about. I know as far as Jenny Mac's location down there, if you've been to the sheriff's meetings on Friday morning, last Friday of the week, he has a great breakfast down there, and the last couple times we're down there, we heard about a lot of drugs coming along through here. And guys, I'm sure that's a lot of the contribution to the young people being involved down there and increasing their length of stay. But Mr. Gales, thank you very much. Appreciate your review. Okay, any public comments?
Hello.
Hi. If you just please give us your name, please.
Yes. I'm Stephanie Foster. I live here in Fayetteville. I wanted to bring something to your attention. I don't know if it falls within your purview or not, but it's a public thing that I'd like to address. My husband and I have land in Washington County, and we've been affected by an unintended consequence of Washington County's review policy. The current policy doesn't seem to consider the impacts of CUP requirements on potentially other adversely affected properties. And our particular situation, we've been directly affected by our access to county services, and that's why I wanted to bring this to your attention. We have a deeded easement across 2 properties to access our acreage in Washington County, and the owner of one of these properties has applied for a CUP for a red dirt pit, and for that dirt pit, they're building a haul road over the top of our deeded easement. So what used to be a flat drive-in is now a drive up over a very, very large hill and then down the other side. Among the conditions that they were required to meet is a maximum grade of 10% on their haul road to meet Arkansas State Fire Code. There were strict design criteria applied to them that they needed to meet as part of their CUP application. But they haven't been required to provide any design drawings or meet any criteria for our easement, which, as I said, now climbs up and over the haul road. That easement is our only route onto our property, which is no longer accessible by a 2-wheel drive vehicle. The slope of our easement is much greater than 10%. It's not compacted as a roadway should be. It's unsafe, and it puts us at risk because emergency services would have difficulty reaching our property if they could reach us at all in the case of, injury with firewood cutting, a fire, anything. We're just inaccessible. The planning system has ensured that if the CUP is approved, The employees of this red dirt pit will have access to fire and emergency vehicles, but our access does not seem to have been considered of how that would be affected. So the county service that we previously had access to has now been taken from us as an unintended consequence of their construction. So I'd ask that you consider maybe a more, and this may be the only, our situation may be so unique that it would never come up again, but I would ask that you consider a more comprehensive policy of requirements that look beyond the CUP applicant's property to all neighboring property owners that could be directly and adversely affected by the CUP design requirements.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Elizabeth Koger, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I just want to say it's great that this has been a great meeting tonight. It's great that you invited Welcome Health. Well, you not only welcomed Welcome Health to come give a report, you invited them, you made them feel welcome, and they gave a wonderful report on the wonderful work they do. And that's the way it should be. And so you learned facts, you got information, now you can make a more informed decision, and so can the public. And that's the way government should work. I thank you for.
Thank you. Any other public comments? I'd listen to a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second? All in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.